Aaron Fisher uh, tagged me and Movie Hubbub in a post the other day. Said this is a great video and nails Movie Hubbub and Slab's free talk. And this is Hold My Dual Shock says the shills are working overtime to turn us all into consumers. And I was like, well, first off, Aaron Fisher, he says all the time, he doesn't call people out, right? Like he doesn't talk about other YouTubers at all, ever. So it's like, well, let's take a look and see what he's talking about. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if they're a couple. Like, I don't know if they're like husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. First off, the guy kind of looks like doesn't even want to be there most of the time. But let's get into it here.
If you don't support the current versions of the IPs being put out by the corporations, then you are then inadvertently no longer a fan of said IP.
Not inadvertently, you are actively against.
Actively
the entire.
So they start off saying that if you don't like what is being shown with current IPs, current franchises, if you don't like it, then you're not a fan. That's what they're trying to say here. Okay, so let's continue to hear what they have to say, because it's kind of ridiculous, but they kind of twist themselves into a situation here where, well, they kind of screw up a little bit.
Crazy, because I think anybody who's paying attention will be like, oh, dude, they're just trying to build better consumers.
Yes, but then they also have these people who are pretending to be fans tout this narrative as if it's fact.
Yeah, why is it that super fans have no discernment? Everything is the greatest thing ever.
Or if you don't support these things, then we will no longer get said thing.
There's no room for discussion, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, I like it because it's more. And so it's kind of like someone who goes to like a buffet like Golden Corral and is like, I know that you may compare this to a fine restaurant where they cook steak well, but the fact that I can have as much as I want makes this better. And I don't think any sane, rational person would argue that. Like, we define ourselves by the things we like and also the things we dislike. You learn by knowing what you dislike and what's not for you.
Yeah. And so it's just, I feel this extreme negativity towards the people I'm seeing on the internet who are continuing this narrative and making these imaginary rules that if you are a fan, then you must act like a consumer and just be happy with whatever we're given.
Well, and it's
all right. So first off, I want to bring this up because specifically, Aaron Fisher says this is a great video and nails Movie Hubbub and Slab's free talk. I have never, ever, ever said anything like this. I've never said,
fan, then you must act like a consumer and just be happy with whatever we're given.
Well, and
I've never said that. I've never said that, hey, Aaron Fisher, hey, Harsh Critic, hey, Lethal Geeks, hey, any of you, anybody, you need to just be happy at what James Gunn is giving you. I've never said you need to just accept what James Gunn is giving you. Never. I've never said that to anybody. My words specifically have always been, look, you may not like Superman. You may not like James Gunn. You may not like Peacemaker, Creature Commandos. And I get that. However, James Gunn is not directing, not writing every single project within the DCU. So be hopeful. Be hopeful that there will be something that comes out that you will enjoy. Okay? That's what I have stated. I've said that many, many times. So the fact that Aaron Fisher was going to sit there and say, this hits Movie Hubbub and Slav right on the nose, is disingenuous and a straight up lie. Because when I talk about Aaron Fisher, when I talk about Harsh Critics, when I talk about the Lethal Geeks, when I talk about the 4K, when I talk about any of that, it's because I'm calling out their misinformation, their lies, their hypocrisy. Look, they can hate James Gunn all they want. I may call them out for it because I think it's ridiculous. Why are you going to criticize somebody as harshly as you actually do when you don't even know them? That's pathetic and ridiculous. But I will never tell you that you can't like something. That's stupid. Like that's just dumb. I've never said anything like that. But let's continue, because they make an interesting point here.
That has never been a part of being a fan of anything. Yeah. People who love Star Wars back in the day used to be the ones who would pick apart problems with Star Wars. I can't remember who we talked to, but they said, like, to them, being a fan is how often you think about it.
Yeah.
Right?
How often do you want to discuss it?
How often do you want to discuss it?
See, I like that. That's actually a really cool way to think of fandom. Like, how often do you think of the thing that you enjoy? How often do you think about wanting to discuss this thing? How often do you want to sit there and be part of the fandom, essentially? You know, I can think of times when I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and you know, if I see a friend of mine, it's like, oh man, I just want to talk Star Wars with him. Or if I see a friend of mine that I know is DC, like, oh, let's just talk DC. Let's just talk DC. You know, that's being a fan. Like, you know, like, hey, I'm a fan of this. I just want to talk about it. And it's so true. That is so true when it comes to being a fan. You just want to talk about it. And the more you want to talk about it, the more of a fan you are, absolutely. But let's continue hearing what they say, because after this point here, this is when things start to get a little bit wonky with what they say.
Not how often do you want to pat each other on the back and be like, we like the best thing ever, right? That's not a discussion.
Yeah. Or they really knocked it out of the park with that one, right?
Whammy! Whammy!
Well, and if you can't enjoy something, if you can't love something when it's not good, I would say you're probably not a real fan. And
that annoys me. There is never a time when somebody else can tell somebody that they are a fan or not a fan of something. I will catch myself sometimes, because I'll get a little heated. I'll get heated, and I'll say, you know, this is a fan, or, you know, maybe you're not a fan. Like, I'll start typing something, or I'll start saying something, and I'll pull back, because it's not my place. It's never our place to say somebody is or isn't a fan, because we're all passionate to a certain point when it comes to things that we enjoy, things that we like. So to sit there and say, oh, because you look at something this way, maybe you're not a fan. No, that's not how it works.
I don't mean that like you should like the bad stuff, but if your love for the overall universe is diminished by other people not liking it,
precisely,
you clearly you would like the community more than you liked the thing. Because I like tons of things that other members of my community do not care for. And it doesn't bother me at all, dude. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of it.
And you might be wondering, what has caused this discussion to happen? It is this post that I recently saw.
So, Blu-Ray Angel, who many of you, I'm sure, have seen in the past on social media in some way, whether it's TikTok or X or whatever it is, he posted a photo of David Cornsweet as Superman with a confused look on his face, and says, "Me to any DC fan that doesn't want the DCU to thrive." And this is where the topic gets very interesting here, because this is a very interesting topic. When it comes to DC.
From Blu-Ray Angel, who said, "Me to any DC fan that doesn't want the DCU to thrive." It irritates me, because it's in the same vein of them saying you have to want the current DCU to thrive. Otherwise, if you are not magically saying everything James Gunn has created or done is fantastic, then you somehow are not a DC fan.
Well, dude, they don't want fans. They want enablers.
Yes.
And that's what I think a shill is, right?
So they go from saying, you know, a fan is somebody who likes and thinks about things all the time, to, you know what, they're not a fan, they're actually a shill, they're an enabler. They go from one extreme to the other. They're sitting here making up their own rules. That's what they're doing here. They're making their own rules with how things are. And it's a little pathetic, if you ask me, because what Blu-Ray Angel is doing here is not trying to be an enabler, not trying to be a shill. You know, I agree with him that fans of DC should be excited and wanting DC to thrive. Whether you're a fan of what James Gunn is doing or not, you should want DC to thrive. It's that simple. Because if DC thrives, that means that we are getting great content. Full stop. Full stop. Like there's no getting around that. Now, does that mean you have to love what James Gunn is doing? No. You could want DC to thrive and not like what James Gunn is doing. But you should still want it to thrive. So what Blu-Ray Angel said is 100% true and accurate. We should all want DC to thrive. We should want the DCU to thrive as well. And like I said before, James Gunn is not doing everything. He's not writing and directing everything. There's going to be projects within the DCU that are going to hit everybody in a different way. So to sit there and call him a shill is kind of a little ridiculous. But let's keep going here.
Somebody who is more interested in the company that owns the IP succeeding than the health and interest in the actual IP. And who can't separate that you're going as a human being with varied interests. You're going to like certain parts more than others.
Well, no, it's this weird fucking loyalty test. It's like, are you an actual DCU fan? Because if you don't like James Gunn stuff and you don't emphatically say it's the greatest thing ever, then how could you say you're a fan?
There's very few people that act like that. Very few people that act like that. They're going to an extreme level here. They may have had one or two bad interactions on social media here that are causing them to do this, which is pathetic. But let's face it, they're sitting here trying to lump a few people into this little corner here to make it seem like, oh, these people are bad because they're quote unquote shills. We're going to call them shills because they're excited about what James Gunn is doing. They're excited about the DCU, so we're going to call them shills. They're shills because they're excited. And that's the problem. They're the ones making up the rules here. You know, I get called a shill all the time. Almost every day on my videos, I'm called a shill. On social media, I'm called a shill. But why? Why am I called a shill? Because I'm excited, because I talk positively about the DCU, because I'll post positive articles and things like that about the DCU. That doesn't make me a shill. That just shows that I'm positive and excited about it. If somebody wants to sit down and have an actual conversation on the internet with me about it and not jump to, well, restore the SnyderVerse or the DCU is trash and it's slop and this and that, and actually have a real conversation, I'll have a real conversation. But that's not what happens. It's people like this right here who are going to just immediately jump to, you're a shill, you're a hack, all you do is you're just a guntard and stuff like that. And that's the problem.
By the way, this is a phenomenon that is totally owned by Hollywood and their studios.
Dude, it's clearly the fucking corporations.
But then they say it's the corporations that are owning it, but meanwhile, they're blaming it on the fans. They're saying the fans are the shills, but they're saying that it's the corporations that are like pushing
this narrative, and all of their little shills are then backing this up in the fandom.
Look at other equally
I don't
passionate
understand
fan
how that
bases,
works.
like a sports fan base. Can you imagine going to a Cowboys fan and being like, oh, if you don't like Jerry Jones, you don't care about the Cowboys?
Yeah, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
If you don't agree with the draft picks, then you're not a Cowboys fan.
Well, first off, the thing with, like, I say this all the time. I actually use a sports analogy all the time because I'm a hockey fan and I'm a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. And my analogy is this. I'm a fan of the logo on the front of the jersey, not the name on the back. When it comes to DC, I'm a fan of the IP, of the franchise. So if they were to fire Gunn and get rid of Gunn, that'll suck. But I want the DC, the IP, the franchise to succeed and thrive. That's what I want to see happen. So if it's with Gunn, awesome. If it's with somebody else, awesome. I don't care. I say that all the time. It's the same concept. So yeah, I use the sports analogies all the time with it. But again,
dude,
people don't listen.
It's as simple as some DC fans don't like the tone. They don't like it. Others do.
Don't like the current state we're in. We're not fucking mindless drones who are saying
we're one movie into this universe. One movie in and one TV show. And they're acting like we've had like a handful of things. That's what is nuts to me. Like, at least like with the DCEU, people had a reason not to like it come 2017, 2018, 2019, because we had a few different things. But we're sitting here with one TV show, one movie, and they're acting like, everything is bad with it. Meanwhile, both the things are very different from tone. And like, we don't like the tone. Well, which tone don't you like? Because one is very adult, crude humor. One is very lighthearted and family friendly. Which one don't you like? Like, what?
You're saying, oh yeah, everything is great. It's the lowering of standards and the acceptance of just what the corporation wants to give you that is disgusting.
Could understand liking what you like and then finding yourself naturally siding with the studio because they're the one giving you the thing you like. What I don't understand is to attack those who dislike it, or to insinuate that their dislike of a product that's being pumped out by a studio is somehow a reflection that they don't care about the overall IP.
Yeah.
Their dislike is proof of their commitment in their investment in the things they like about the IP.
However, not all, but a large majority of these people that say they don't like DC are sitting there saying they don't like it because they want the SnyderVerse back. I'm not saying all, but most of them are. So it's not because they want the DCU to thrive. They want the SnyderVerse to thrive. And that's the problem. That's the problem.
And there's a very big difference between someone saying, I don't like DC because it's not Marvel. Like, yeah, that person probably is rooting against the DC, but they're not really a fan. They're a Marvel
not a fan. Yeah.
But
that's like saying people who currently don't support the direction the DCU is going in, they were never a real fan. They're fake fans.
Well, and again,
speed this up a little bit here.
To all those people, I would ask, where were you when Henry Cavill was Superman?
Yeah.
Did you equally get upset when the choruses of fire Henry Cavill and we don't like Henry Cavill because he's too morose? Were you saying, oh, you don't like Henry Cavill, I don't get you? Why would any DC fan want to see the DCEU fail? No, the people that post stuff like this are the exact people who said things like, we can finally admit that Zack Snyder's DCEU is dead. Yeah. That doesn't sound like people who want the DC universe to thrive. No. It sounds like people who do make it into a competition and now they're getting their thing, which again,
the people that make it into a competition are the people who sit there and say, oh, Superman didn't make the same amount of money as Man of Steel. Oh, Man of Steel made this much money. Superman did this. Man of Steel sold this many tickets. Superman did this. Man of Steel did this. Superman did this. Henry Cavill this. David Cornsweet that. Meanwhile, the people who are sitting here excited about the DCU and Superman are just excited about Superman and the DCU. They're not comparing it to something from 15 years ago. That's what's crazy.
That's totally cool. The sad thing about that is, yeah, you may be up now, but dude, you'll be down later.
Well, no, it's also not just the DCU, you guys. We saw the same thing happen with Star Wars.
Nobody
Disney
cares.
took it over and people were voicing their dissent and that things weren't going the way they wanted.
It's like when you start doing things that don't make sense,
the fandom should turn on.
Then you are going to have a divide.
Yeah.
And then you better hope that you've earned enough new fans to make up for the fact that a lot of people are like, no, dog, you lost me. I don't get it. I'm not interested.
So for me, I say all the time that DC films have a future that has never looked brighter, because we have leadership that truly cares, that has control, unlike we've ever seen before. Not like what we had under Hamada or under Jeff Johns, things like that. I get what they're trying to say here. I do get what they're trying to say, that, look, there are times when I don't like something that, it could be because we like the overall IP so much that that's why we don't like something. I get what they're saying. But sometimes you have to step back and see the bigger picture. You have to take a look at the bigger picture. And that's what a lot of people aren't doing right now. They're not stepping back and saying, okay, look, James Gunn, some of these people don't like James Gunn. I've never told anybody they have to like James Gunn. You don't have to like Superman. You don't have to like Peacemaker. But what you can do is you can step back and say, okay, look, Lanterns, made by Damon Lindelof, that could be interesting. That could be something I can get behind. Supergirl, Craig Gillespie, and Naguaria, that could be interesting. I could get behind that maybe. Clayface, that looks good. That could be something I can get behind. They could step back and take a look at the bigger picture and say, these are projects that I might be able to like. So I have a bit of a hopeful outlook on things. Instead, they just sit there and look at the negative. I've never seen such a large group of negative, just unhappy people. And that's all it is. With this, there's this group of people that are just so negative and so unhappy all the time. Like, they must be a joy to be around, let me tell you. Like, why do you have to be so negative? There's no reason for it. No reason at all.
Into being like, hey, I actually need to like what's coming out and I need to support the current DCU. Otherwise, somehow someone's going to say I'm not a real fan.
Well, it's the idea that criticism is inherently negative.
Yeah.
And again, I think that just speaks to people not having any experience in creative fields.
Well, and also,
criticism is not negative. It's whenever you then take that criticism so far and you just don't stop. Take a look at someone like Aaron Fisher, who just constantly attacks James Gunn. Not on like a monthly basis or bi-monthly basis or even a bi-week. It is every single video he does. He's attacking James Gunn non-stop. Like, that is an obsession. That is not critiquing. That's not criticism. That is an obsession. And that's terrible. Harsh Critics does it. I won't even say Lethal Geeks does it because they are honestly not as bad as many people give them or try to say they are. So I give them credit on that regard. But of course, I don't watch them that often, if at all, really. I think I've watched like 2 of their videos. But for the most part, like, you know, people like 4KO and things like that, they just attack non-stop. That's not criticism.
Just the corporate narrative that they're trying to put out to try and battle against some of these negative talking points, to try and give themselves some protection.
Well, and I think that's why so many of these conversations now are not about the creative merits of it, but about the dollars and cents of it.
Yeah.
And the corporations, when things were going poorly, when people could tell that a lot of what was coming out was cash grabby slop, they would point to, but it made a lot of money, therefore it must have value. And again, success, monetary success, is not the same as quality. In fact, oftentimes the things that are most financially successful are the things of the least quality because they're the most easy to manufacture. And that's kind of where the industry is. I don't think that it is healthy to view people saying, I didn't like this, as inherently negative, because that's part of the creative process. Anytime you create something, you invite other people to critique you, even if it's something stupid, like for this video, like on this live stream, by us sitting there.
I wish Aaron would hear this. I guess he kind of missed it when he was watching this video. When you create something, you can be critiqued. You know, he goes and strikes Movie Hubbub because Movie Hubbub actually critiques what he says, and he goes and tries to strike him. Like, come on, bro. That's not cool.
We're gonna have people that disagree with us. It doesn't bother me at all, dude. If you can't handle criticism, then you probably can't handle the creative process.
Yeah.
Anybody who's made things should know that. It's not all pats on the back, you've done a great job. You learn by listening to people say what didn't work. And dude, if you hear people say, I didn't like this, and you continue down that path, that can be a good thing too. Dude, there's plenty of times that people have stuck to their guns and proven in the long run that their vision was correct. But if you're telling people that any feedback other than positivity is inherently hurting the overall thing, then you're crazy.
Yeah, it's insanity.
Look, again, you can criticize, you can not like things, that's fine. But when it comes to being obsessed like some of these people are, and I'm not saying they are, I'm not saying these guys are, what are their names
There's
again?
Also a clear
whatever their names are, the
diversion of fandom
hold my dual
and just
shock.
wanting it to be.
I'm not saying they are. Like I said, I don't know who these two are. I don't know if they're husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever they are. I don't know them. This video is the first time this is the first video I've ever watched of theirs, so I don't know who they are. But these other people, like they go to an obsessive amount of just criticism, and it's not even criticism at that point.
Oh, 100%. They want to build a better consumer. They want the type of blind loyalty you see when you have people who will defend the new iPhone that maybe is underwhelming, right? But because it's an iPhone, you've got a very loyal following. I get it. People like.
He's describing the Snyder cult right now, and Zack Snyder, and exactly what he's been doing. That is the funniest thing about this video.
The things they like. But when you condition people to abandon reason and to disagree with a belief they held right before the newest release, I think that is cult mentality. And again, reading business books, you'll know that every business wants a cult. Like, that's what you really want. I don't want to have to earn your money. Yeah. I want you to feel obliged to give it to me. And seeing the past couple of years, the number of influencers, people that should know better, especially people that are close to the industry, become cult members, become acolytes for these things, it's actually very sad. because every time you do that, what is one thing true about cults? At some point, the Kool-Aid gets dispersed, and people realize, uh-oh, this was a mistake. Yeah.
So when does the Snyder cult realize that they're in a cult? Who knows? Look, I just thought this was an interesting video to look at, because the way they go with this. First off, they construe what a shill is. A lot of the fans out there, and especially how Aaron Fisher says, first off, says Movie Hubbub and myself are shills. No, we're not. I know for a fact I'm not. And Movie Hubbub, he and I have been talking back and forth. He does not seem like a shill at all. We just like the DCU. We like to disprove the misinformation that's out there. And then they talk about the cult mentality, where they talk about the what makes a fan, all that kind of stuff. And it's interesting because when you sit there and listen to these people, they make a lot of sense, but they kind of, and I'm not saying them directly, but it goes against a lot of these people that are like the Snyder cultists and the haters that hate James Gunn. Like everything they say goes against them more than it goes against the fans of the DCU, which is crazy to me. And to think that Aaron Fisher actually sat there and said, "Oh, this is Movie Hubbub and Slabs Free Talk." I don't think he watched the video. Either that, or he's just that dense and didn't actually realize it's more about him than anything else.